Welcome to Inference and Incense, where insight meets intuition when irrational bows to the ritual, and the data always have something to say. We, two data scientists, exploring one big questions each week, taking turns surprising each other with a mystery guest and a live reading. Each week, our questions is equal parts over-analysis and random curiosity. This one starts something like this. Okay, Lucy. So we talked so much about past prophecy, recent prophecy, and all of your favorite prophets. So I guess I want to switch over to solution mindsets and let's see how irrational people are and what can we do about it.
Yeah, you have no tolerance for inefficiency and irrationality, I can tell. Do you have a morning case that we can explore further?
Not prophecy, but maybe like irrational in general. I mean, we got to talk about GameStop, right? Because that's modern prophecy in the making, created a massive populist movement against the establishments in real time.
Oh, wow, let's talk about it because that would be a great recap because that's a lot of people's highlight during COVID.
Exactly, exactly. I like the movie. I think it did a pretty great job. But if you remember, I think early 2021, GameStop was a not quite struggling, but not a very great performing retail company at that time, right? And there was a lot of financial movements on the streets trading. Do you remember a lot of those details?
Oh, I have to admit, it was like watching this unfold on Reddit, and it was so mesmerizing. And that was like, oh, stop being upset about not able to go to work, but let's follow this new trend on Reddit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, from that study of GameStop and the movie, this was like the study about shorting a stock more than just having a financial gain, but making a point. Like that's just insane, the amount of emotional support that they got from common people, right?
Yeah, it's very insane if you think about it, because that's why people are so crazy about it. Is it's like you are becoming a hero from nobody, and then everyone followed him, and it's just crazy to think about one individual without power.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. And their stock folded what 30 times in I don't remember how much that they started out initially before the story began, but it went as high as like $500 in the weeks of one of the highest points. And it crashed sub 40s. I mean, can you imagine being a part of that movement?
I wasn't, as I was more rational, but I watched a trend. Like a lot of people become like millionaires overnight just by following that guy. And then, but what's striking is they hold stock for a long time.
Yeah, and that was an emotional decision purely rather than, buy low and sell high. It was it was more like anti-establishment. It's kind of like FUL if I remember it specifically, but I'll tell you a funny story. So one of Christian's family members, um, and her mother was in the 90s. She from Poughkeepsie, New York, and she's a very smart old lady, and you can imagine, how would she come into this story? She was trading GameStop at that time, and I remember she was telling me in the kitchen, she was like, it just looks good for me," and that was, like, something that she said over and over again, and, I think it was just, like, so early on in the story, and I'm like, "GameStop? What are you talking about? That makes no sense," and of course, like, you don't take trading tips from you should take it from elderly, but not a 90-something-year-old, elderly. I mean, I didn't, but, it was very funny at that time.
Oh, that's crazy. Did she make any money out of it?
I never follow up, but, she was such a sweet lady. She just passed away a week ago, which made me thought about this story, but, yeah, yeah, she was from Poughkeepsie, New York, who traded GameStop.
Well, I guess that's a happy ending if you die like older than 90 and still hold some shares of it. But I hope like she made money out of it because I just checked the stock price. It's now down to like 20 something.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so let's analyze this a little bit. So, why do you think this works?
Sometimes the butterfly wing flap effect, you know, but commonly there's usually a boogeyman in stories like this, right? There's a singular common enemy. And usually every successful prophecy movement always need a villain, somebody to commonly hate. And GameStop had the perfect one, the hedge funds, the Wall Street elite, the common enemy of our blue collar workers, right? I think this triggers a lot of us for STEM psychology. And when your brain identifies a common enemy and there's enough people behind it, the power of that movement create a lot of the cortisol, the oxytocin, and then also dopamine at the same time. You're no longer making financial investment and trading anymore. You go into war.
Yeah, that's so true. You don't realize that GameStop is actually same story. Because even if we examine all the major events in history, there's always hero, there's always a villain, or even in any prophecies, we create this man-made devils, right? That's why you need a Jesus to come back and to save us, things like that. And if you think about modern conspiracy theories, what unites people at the end of the day will be aliens, because that's the only way we human race can come together to fight that common enemy. So in that sense, it's actually the enemy to bring all of us together to the moon.
I always joked, and this more of a joke than truth, but hate unite us stronger than love. I know it's controversial, but it's a very clear goal, defeat your enemy. Love is very general, it's so generic, and it's hard to sometimes unite people behind it. Of course, I think it's a much better cause, but I think the common hates really move people. It rationalize decision making. It accelerate a lot of actions from grassroots movements, and it gives you a lot of motivation and agency more than anything. The power to change something that coming your way. The collective actions of all of us.
Yeah, so it gives you purpose. But it's kind of sad to think the hatred or the negativity is actually motivating us to come together. Because I was reading Conversations with God, the New Age book, a while
Yes.
ago, and then
You
in
you
that,
forced me. You forced it on me. You gave me volume 1 and 2.
right. So I mean, in God's defense, right? This is a world of duality. The the hate and love, those are on the two extreme of the love spectrum, if we want to call it. And then they both are trying to teach us how to love. Even the World War II is actually we become in such a like horrible state and desperate, and then that's why whatever that intention triggered the war is actually trying to teach us how to love.
Yeah, I mean, it is a horrible way to think about it. I agree, but it's a very simple human animalistic way. Like if you hate something, you want to end it. It's a very unique singular North Star KPI. If you want to think about it that way. And when you love something, I think it's teaching way of life, how to think, how to act, how to treat one another. There's so many goals coming from a common love, but with a common hate, it's very simple, one goal, and it's call for action. But I think that's where like whatever unites us, and I don't want to get too political about it, but it's much easier to really motivate people with a common enemy, and every religion have that. right? They all have a common a faith uniter and a common challenge or a common enemy that they want to fight against.
Yeah, again, it gives you purpose. And I feel especially during COVID time, right? Because we start working from home, we're losing that network, we're losing that meaning of life, and then like creating something, a common enemy, like GameStop's case, we're kind of like making the Wall Street elite a target. Then it gives a lot of us a purpose. Again,
Yeah, yeah. And I think the last thing is that the punishments versus rewards system. And I think this is where it gets dark, right? Like once you buying into the common hate or common love, like your actions get rewarded. And I think in this GameStop case, the rewards and the punishment is very clear and very so distinctively of a case that it felt instantly on both sides. The one who want to punish feels the reward, and the one who get punishment feels the punishment financially right away. That's extremely powerful. And if you ever doubt the effect of, the collective group of people, GameStop is just always coming back to my mind as one of the most modern history case of good versus evil. I mean, supposedly.
well, that's kind of like profound, right? Because then you're saying this becomes a tribe, and then people are searching for belongings, right, through this format. And then this is actually no different than a religious group, then.
No, no, I think they're simple, their faith, against the elite, all of that are their identities, their attributes, that they hold very dear. Some of them hold so dear that they refuse to sell because they was like, "F the elite," kind of, like, "F the establishments," like, it's a few of their slogan.
That's no, like that's really crazy to me, right? Because I would think a lot of people join the game because of the incentive, right? The potential reward of it. But why would they just still hold the stock after
Right?
a tank, right? Like, why do they still believe in this collective dream, a journey, whatever we want to call it? Like, that's so irrational.
Yeah, yeah, it is, especially I mean, you know me, I'm a horrible gambler. I'm a horrible guest at a casino. I come in, I play $100. If I win 200 bucks, I'm out. I'm gonna take my 200 bucks gain and I'm gonna go to a steakhouse and I'm gonna buy my dinner. But I think, yeah, the emotional incentive and dedication of these people, I think some of the case they were like in the hundred of thousands of dollars net gain, and they refused to sell for whatever reason, and I just stay on as long as they could. And the cost of the financial loss becomes very secondary to the impact that they're making on the establishment elite.
Totally, because it's kind of like modern corporates as well. They kind of like form this religion or the corporate value, and that it turns out like they start valuing the CEO, the co-founder of the company, and seeing them as God, right? Like Steve Jobs was probably the most famous example. Like people had mixed comments or critiques about him, but a lot of people like instead really knowing him in person or like evaluating his work holistically, they see him as a god, worship him, and then he becomes a modern prophecy for a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, their stock finally crashed to like the low 20s, as you just said. But it was probably a bit higher than that. But, you know, ultimately, did a lot of people win? Did the VC continue to live on? Yeah, I think so, right?
Yeah, so I feel again, this reminds me of Tatsuki, right? Because once you have that one prophecy, you kind of like decide to attach to it and then follow it. And then that's kind of started to become part of your belief system. And I think there are common patterns throughout the systems, throughout the ages. So, what do you think? Can we recognize this pattern?
Yeah, fear. It's always tapping into, I think, the most animalistic feeling of human being. The pattern is the same. The emotional goal of the end user is the same.
So we should recognize that inner fear, in other words, right? So that we can avoid being trapped in the emotions and then the fear loop and trying to get out of it and then just be present.
Well, good luck.
So are you saying that we can never beat prophecy in that case? Because again, like probably couldn't change the fact that we still have that limbic brain. We're animals event at the end of the day.
Yeah, but I think you could put some critical thinking behind it.
How do we do it?
Like, how do we recognize the critical thinking behind it?
Yeah,
Or how do we solve a prophecy? Which one?
I guess a little bit both, right?
Lucy, they are very different questions. Focus. Which one?
Can you elaborate?
Well, I mean, like, how do we create a good prophecy? It's very different than, like, how do we recognize the structure of a modern prophecy and prevent ourselves to get emotionally involved behind it? It's very different.
Okay, let's focus on the second one because I think, at least now we don't want to create more illusions, even though it can be a good one. But let's focus on the solution.
Okay. Okay. How do we recognize prophecy? Okay. So I think we just talked about this. And if I have to summarize it, what makes a prophecy a good prophecy? So we can recognize it, aka problem identification before, problem solution. I think there's always trying to identifying a common enemy and bring people together by having that common enemy. The more people they bring together through hate, the stronger their source is. Um, I think they try to unite people. The regular, the better for these kind of prophecy. And they offer something very simple, right? Buy the stock after establishments, let's drain out the VC. They create very simple layman language that our regular common people could stand behind it. Slogans, three-word chants, and they explain the reward punishment language in a very clear and easy way so they know who's a winner, who's the loser at the end. Do you agree?
Oh, love that, especially when you say they promise simple solution. Because the other thing I think we've been talking about is how lazy we human beings are, right? Because anything, if we can skip it, we don't do it, right? That's why we think about things a lot, but we rarely do anything or execute. And I think just human nature, like not to do anything, but that's how we advance. But in terms of prophecy, I think a common term, like you described, is they always promise a very simple solution, like
Yes.
Jesus comes back, right? Or you buy a sock or whatever. And I think that's kind of like what bothers me as a consequence, right? Like, why would people rather believe the prophecy than trusting science? Why science kept losing, even though it has credibility, it offers a real solution. Like, people seem to choose prophecy just because it's easier.
True. And I think, like human being, including myself, are lazy at heart. I mean, sometimes when you make 10,000 decisions at the end of your workday, do you really want to think or you want someone to tell you what to think and feel good about it, being on your couch scrolling? I think it's latter, right? And it's so much not about busy anymore. I think we should dive into this, like the modern challenge and the human identity in this day and age in a separate episode. But I think it's hard to blame people for their decisions, especially in the day of misinformations. I think people is tired at the end of the day. And if you look at the advertising and how the political swinging the message so differently, it's really hard to remember when truth is and when false information is. And you only remember, the very quick slogan, the lazy thing. I mean, it's not a political example here on one way or another, but you remember drain the swamp, right? You remember much more than who is it against, who is it about, who said it, but you remember the slogan. Medical freedom is a more recent one from COVID.
Oh yeah, what about COVID? Because even a lot of like experts, they were against vaccine, right? Why every time if those prophecies are winning?
I know. I mean, like the flat earther, I don't get it. But I think this is going back to like the populist formula. Back in the day, if you and I in a village and somebody said the earth is flat, and if the village have established that the earth is not flat, that person is just gonna be called named and never able to actually create a big following. But I forgot how big of a following of a group of Earth is flat on Facebook now. But it's big, Lucy. I'm not talking about 1,000 or 2,000. I'm talking about in the hundreds of thousands of a big group. So it's just going back to the populist formula. And the more people believing in these false information, the more power that is behind the false belief.
But I mean, how would they even negate the truth? Say the Earth's flatter. Like, don't we have evidence and data points to prove them wrong?
I mean, in terms of emotional impact, it's hard to prove it's right or wrong, right? I mean, they believe it is so strongly. If you believe in vaccine, creating autism for your children, who am I to say you're right or wrong? So I don't think a lot of strength behind prophecy is about having proof. And I think this is where communication, having unifying facts from governmental agency is really important for the common man, which is a very difficult thing in a very dynamic culture like the American.
Yeah, I think it's actually very similar than spiritual pathways. Because in history, we know a lot of seers got enlightened. Say, we talk about Buddha, we talk about Jesus. We do have recorded scripts saying that these people got enlightened. And then we can take their words for it, and then we can acknowledge them as prophecy. But the truth is, you still have to experience it yourself to become enlightened. It's not you can take their results and be enlightened right away. I think that's what I'm trying to come up with for the modern prophecy solutions. Like, how do we actually recognize it, but still gather data points yourself to
Mm,
prove it? At least,
I,
how is it meaningful for you?
yeah, yeah. I think it's so hard. I mean, we can talk about, mathematical thinking behind it. How do you create the basic informations and continue to update your information and gather? I mean, this is like Bayesian formula at best, but I don't know, Lucy. Like, I want to spend the next few minutes just to really hone in one big segment around solution. And I really don't think it's like just prophecy or just proof of all the time, but maybe just let's think out loud on when do we know we can trust either prophecy or proof.
Let's do it. The mathematical way always excites me.
Well, I think Bayesian common in a nutshell, you have a certain belief, aka your past success informations, and you call it intuition, the things that you feel, and you continue to improve it with new evidence. So you build a baseline and you constantly recalibrate that baseline with new evidence as it comes.
Let's unpack this a little bit for our audience because I think usually math is a turn off for most of people, right? Let's make it interesting. And then I guess let's use Jesus coming back as an example. So our belief, our intuition is that believe Jesus is true, God is true, it's good, right? And then right now, we don't have evidence to say Jesus is coming back. So we'll put it like 50% Jesus is coming back. But say tomorrow, just tomorrow, it can happen that I'm seeing Jesus manifesting in front of me, like me as a person, individual. I see Jesus. So it gives me great confidence that, of course, I've seen Jesus, he'll come back. Then I'm now lifting my probability into 70 or 80% so that I'm a huge advocate now for Jesus coming back.
Agreed. I love it.
Yeah, coming back to Buddhism. So we say trust the teaching, test it yourself, revise your understanding. So I think this perfectly matches with the Bayesian we just talked about. The scientific method here is now hypothesis, experiment, and revise. They marry perfectly. It's the same process across cultures now.
Do you think most people who listening fell asleep by now?
No, I'm sure they're driving, so they're not allowed.
Well, as we can hope, but like I do want to round up our episodes on this with how do we know when we can trust prophecy and when we have to trust proof?
Yes, please.
So I think the big question is just to restate, when do you trust intuition versus data, right? Like I think let's remove the prophecy behind it. If there's no data available, a crisis just started, trust your intuition is a very strong priors. That's the best baseline, the best indicator that you have, you know. It's a horrible example, but 9/11, if you had a bad feeling, I think people seem distressed. You don't know what's going on with all the commotions. Run. In the next stage where there are more data available, and you have early evidence, actual evidence, not people say evidence, but actual evidence, and hopefully it's credible sourced evidence. You should try to see things from both sides, from both your intuitions as well as from the proved side. And you're trying to integrate both rather than reject things immediately. And I think the last stage, which if you have strong data, overwhelming proof, and when data scientists like us saying that you have strong data, overwhelming proof, what we mean by that is that you have a large sample size. It happens across segments, across culture, across gender, across people age, and if seems to be effective, you should be listening to that kind of evidence more so than your intuitions.
Yeah, you're talking too much as a data scientist. I think for like layman's, I think it's just always easier to use a right brain, like to make quick judgment. But again, I think we're saying that always have that discernment, right? Instead of trusting prophecy 100%, you want to assess your gut feeling, your intuition first. Does it align instead of trusting something 100%? And then, of course, try to incorporate the logical brain a little bit if you have a lot of data points. And then you can hire us too.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, there are negatives from going extreme, right? If you purely intuition 100% of times, regardless of evidence available, you are bound for conspiracy theories. GameStop is a great modern example of that. Once you have enough evidence, you should not be refusing to sell despite seeing losing trend. And the vice versa is also true. If you're 100% running on proof and you don't trust your gut instinct, and I think I personally is a case of that in my early 20s, it means you miss out early gut warnings that could be very beneficial when there's not enough evidence that available for you. And I think, this work for the case like scientists, they dismiss a lot of gut feelings because, there's not a lot of peer reviews yet. There's not a lot of informations or data.
Yeah, so you're saying we should take a more integrated approach instead of like treating them like as isolate. I think that's a great conclusion for our episode.
All right, that's it, everyone.